Come on down, please. We've got some space back here to fill in.
I'm recording right now.
Everyone can take about 3 steps this direction. Thank you. My name's Valerie, by the way. I apologize. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. Today, as we look around the campus, it is a large campus, about 40 acres. But of course, it grew over time. What you are seeing here behind me is one of the older buildings on campus. In fact, I believe it is the oldest. And many people today refer to this building as the high school. Across the years, though, this campus served a large age range of students. There were programs that began for students as young as 3 and 4 years old, and some students would actually continue on at the school into their 20s. And there were different completion programs. There was an actual graduation program where many students earned their diplomas here from the School for the Blind. Those of you who came to our last exhibit we put on called Lansing High Schools may remember seeing a few artifacts from the School for the Blind as a part of that. There was also a certificate track for students who were not able for one reason or another to complete their high school work. They could receive a certificate of completion. Now, to enter the School for the Blind, one simply needed to be a Michigan resident. In the 1930s, it became part of the Department of Education. And so if you were a student from Bay City or from Petoskey or Traverse City, you would simply have to work with your school district to transfer your student here. And any student was welcome to come. Then what would happen is the money that would have gone from the state traditionally to that school district then would come here. And of course, additional funds were provided as well for housing needs and so on, because obviously there were additional services offered here that would not have been covered in the home school. In addition to housing the students on campus, though, there was also a significant eye care clinic that was run on the campus. And this was something actually that was open to adults. There were a lot of Lansing residents actually who would come to the clinic. And I was amazed, just luck of the draw, I was looking through one of the yearbooks that is on loan to us tonight from the Department of Ed. And as I looked through, I actually found my eye doctor as a child growing up worked here. Dr. Seelig worked at the clinic. And I never realized this. I called him and said, hey, can you tell me some stories? Roger Seelig actually grew up in Lansing, not too far from here. He was kind of sort of the northwest side of town. Graduated, went mostly through Sexton. He ended up graduating from Howell when his family moved. Went through school, completed his degree in optometry at the University of Indiana, and not long after, he was drafted in the middle of Vietnam. Now, he was ended up staying stateside, and he received an assignment to work at a medical rehab facility in the Boston area. And as a part of this, because of his training in eye care, he helped rehabilitate soldiers who had had eye injuries or loss of sight as a result of their wounds in their service in the war. That put him in a position to deal with a lot of different visual problems. When he came back to Michigan then, he very quickly found himself working here. And for many years, he would come over at least one day a week and not only offer his services to the students on campus who would receive regular checkups and help obtaining particular vision devices, he would also work with other people from across the state who would come here. And even though this was years ago, the 1970s largely, when he was here, he told me that he still sees a couple of the former students that have kept in touch with him all of the years. One advantage of a facility like this was they had the top scientific knowledge as to the study of visual disabilities and the technology that was coming about, particularly for different eyewear. You know, most of us today look at someone with a pair of glasses on and think simply that's a pair of glasses. You know, we might know the difference between bifocals and trifocals and so on, but I will tell you, I started to become very confused very quickly as he was explaining all of the intricate devices that were available to the students. Glasses made of 3 and 4 different lenses, lenses that are sort of a telescopic quality to them actually. And the idea was to make the students as independent as possible, to make them as mobile as possible, so they would be able to go and leave the school and live on their own in a sighted world. And that is something that I have heard people today talk about fondly with the school, was the fact that that service was not only offered to the students, but to the community as a whole and to the state as a whole. And that's something that many people feel is missing now. What I would like to do next, oh, I'm sorry, please.
I was going to say these windows up here that kind of stick out where the principal's office was years ago. And then the kindergarten and then the first grade was in the basement, and then fourth and fifth and sixth were on the second floor, and the high school was the third floor.
Okay.
Right, and then
Interesting. Library on
the top floor used to be the library and the recreation room. And there was a bowling alley up there that was just a manual thing that was all sanded by hand back in the late 1920s. Constructed all by hand.
That must have been fun. Manual. You know, I have not been in any of the buildings save for Rizzy and the Neighborhood Empowerment Center, so I can't really speak to that. Pardon? My real job is I'm a tour guide at the Capitol. Once talking, always talking, I guess.
Have you heard anything about the fate of this campus or what might happen?
You know, I don't know. The buildings that are set to be demolished are some of the dorms that are on the west side of the building, or excuse me, the west side of the campus, dorms or cottages they're sometimes referred to as. I know there is hope, certainly, that some of these larger buildings towards the front will be redeveloped. There was talk at one point in time of a senior citizen home being put in on the campus. I know that fell through, but I know there is, between the land bank and the Housing Coalition, I know there's very much an interest in redeveloping the site. That's about all I can tell you, though. I'm not the one on the inside making decisions on that. All right, we're going to head this way next.